Hey everyone, Dr. Mungli here. So many people does intermittent fasting, and I just wanted to discuss about what are the timings and what actually means intermittent fasting and what is the timing of it, because timing is most important in intermittent fasting. And also I'll touch upon role of insulin, glucagon and all that. So fasting, you got to know when exactly we get into fasting condition. So when we eat meals, like when we eat food, from that point onwards for 4 hours, from that point it is called as absorptive period. At that time there will be digestion of the food going on in the intestine, in the stomach, and then there will be absorption of that particular food in a simple form, like carbohydrates into glucose, proteins into amino acids, and lipids into fatty acids. Okay, so after that what happens? So that is 0 to 4 hours, that is called absorptive period. Then 4 hours to next about 6 hours from there, like 4 hours to 6 hours. And so that means, so 4 hours until next 6 hours. That means from the point that you have taken food, from there to 4 hours is absorptive period. When 4 hours to 10 hours, that is the gap of 6 hours, it is called as post-absorptive period. In the post-absorptive period, what happens? The molecules, the simple molecules that are absorbed from the intestine, so they will be taken into the liver. From there they will be going into the systemic circulation, and from there all other organs and tissues will start taking up those simple molecules, and they will get into metabolism of those molecules depending on what is the necessity of that cell in that particular condition. Okay, that is called as post-absorptive period. So that means from the point you have taken food until the 10 hours. So first 4 hours is absorptive and next 6 hours is post-absorptive. That means from 10 hours after food, that's where fasting starts. So we get into fasting condition from 10 hours after food. So from that 10 hours until 24 hours, you call it as a fasting state. From 24 hours to 72 hours, we call it as a prolonged fasting, and 72 hours onwards, it is called as starvation. Right now, so what happens when we are into post-absorptive and going into fasting conditions? At that time, our insulin level slowly decreases, glucagon level slowly rises. So insulin is an anabolic hormone. It is trying to build things like when we have excess glucose in the liver is converted to fatty acids, triglycerides, cholesterol and all that. So as we get into fasting condition, so glucagon is a degradation hormone. Basically it degrades glycogen into glucose, triglycerides in the adipose tissue into fatty acids and glycerol. So our intention here is to bring that glucagon. So when you are going to bring the glucagon start to rise 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours after meals, slowly it rises, but by when we reach fasting condition, glucagon levels are sufficiently high and insulin levels are low, and that's when we are start to degrade the adipose tissue into fatty acids, and most of our tissues start using fatty acids as their energy molecule. So when we are exercising in fasting condition, majority of our energy, it is mostly coming from adipose tissue degradation into fatty acids, and fatty acids are used. Now, okay, so intermittent fasting. So when this intermittent fasting has to be done, and what are the different types of intermittent fasting depending on the timing. So 10 hours after meal, that's when we get into fasting condition. So imagine that you have taken your last meal 8 p.m. in the previous night. So that means next day morning 6 a.m. that's when 10 hours you get into fasting condition. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. those 2 hours you are in fasting condition. So if you break your fast at 8 a.m., that means you actually spent only 2 hours in fasting condition, right? So usually most of the people, they do like this. Now that's not really intermittent fasting. Now if you prolong that fasting from 8 hours, means from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., that's 2 hours. If you prolong it to 10 a.m., that means from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. you are 4 hours in fasting condition. You can begin with that. You can begin from breaking your fast at 10 a.m. So, and then as your metabolic adaptation goes after 15 days or a week, so, and then you increase to 12 noon. That means from 6 a.m. to 12 noon, that means you are 6 hours of fasting and your adipose tissue undergoes degradation and fatty acids are used for energy purpose. What about if you prolong it to 2 p.m. in the afternoon? From 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. that's 8 hours of fasting, right? That means 8 hours of real into fasting state. That means if you have taken a meal 8 p.m. in the previous night and then 2 p.m. next day you are breaking your fast, that means it totals to 18 hours from the last meal. So 18 hours fasting, it's technically it's not 18 hour fasting, it's only 8 hours of fasting, because fasting actually starts from 10 hours after your last meal. So in that 18 hours of not feeding, so 10 hours we have spent as absorptive, post-absorptive, 8 hours are true fasting. So and then our feeding window will be another 6 hours of feeding window. In that feeding window, you got to make sure that the healthy food you are taking, like high fiber rich food, well balanced proteins and lipids, and as much as possible less carbs, and if carbs are there, you make sure you take complex carbohydrates. So this is what is 18-6 intermittent fasting, which is most effective in my sense, because I also follow that kind of 18-6 intermittent fasting, because in this 18-6 maximum amount of fasting we are using there. So that is 8 hours of strict fasting condition where glucagon is high and try to break adipose tissue into fatty acids, and tissues are using fatty acids. So okay, so this is what is 18-6, and as you decrease that 18 to say 16, then it will be 16-8, or if it is 14, so 14-10, like that. So these are different ways of doing intermittent fasting, but you can start from lower window, like 12 hours of fasting, 12 hours of feeding, and then 14 hours of fasting, 10 hours of feeding, and then 12 hours of fasting, and then 8 hours of 12 hours of feeding. So something like this. So as you go progress and metabolic adaptation is going on, you can increase the fasting timing and decrease the feeding time. So this is what is intermittent fasting. I hope this video has helped you in knowing the terminologies and the timing, and also when glucagon goes up, insulin comes down. So the point here is you got to make sure you keep your insulin low and glucagon levels high. So insulin to glucagon ratio, you got to keep it as low as possible. Thereby you take the benefit of rise in the glucagon rather than rise in the insulin. So that's about intermittent fasting. If you have any question, or if you have an experience of doing intermittent fasting, let me know in the comment section below. If you have any question about the timing, these terminologies, so let me know in the comment section below, and when I get time I will definitely make sure to respond to those comments. And also if you want me to make any specific videos on this timings and biochemistry part of it, so let me know. So and any nutrition topic, so I will try to make those videos. So that's it from for now. I will see you in my next video. Until then, peace.